Thank you, Anita. Exactly 30 years ago, Sudhakar was talking about this wonderful building in Pune. Exactly 30 years ago, there was a building that came up in New Delhi, which was a beacon of eco-friendly building. We are lucky and fortunate to be sitting inside that building today. I think a lot of you have had the chance to visit it around, and this was exactly 1993 when this building came up. So that's a interesting coincidence, and we are fortunate to be here. Thank you very much, everyone. That brings us, and before that, I would like to thank our lovely gifting partners, Adiva, small token that they have kept for the speakers. Thank you very much, Adiva. That brings us to our next panel, which is about achieving sustainable success, uniting startups and investors for a greener future. And now today's startups understand how important it is to sort of build in the whole sustainability piece in order to create more resilient and longer-term companies. But I think it's also important for investors to be hand in hand with them. And that is what brings us to the next panel. I would like to invite on stage Anjalli Kumar, Chief Sustainability Officer at Zomato, Ashish Wadhwani, co-founder and managing partner, IvyCap Ventures, Gaurav Kushwaha, founder and CEO of BlueStone, Ruchira Shukla, regional lead South Asia, Disruptive Technologies, IFC, Uday Narang, chairman and founder, Omega Seiki, and Smita Mishra, who will be moderating this panel, founder and CEO of Fandoro.
Hi, thank you, Upasna, for the lovely introduction, and thank you, audience, for joining us this morning. Delhi making it on time is a surprise, but I'm so glad to see you all here. And yes, just as we begin the panel discussion, let me ask how many of you actually are investors in sustainability? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all? Aren't we all investors in sustainability if we actually pay for it? Yeah? All right, so we all are investors in sustainability, but, and how many entrepreneurs here? Oh, awesome. Good. So yes, today we're going to talk about how this whole ecosystem of investors and startups are actually coming together or not to build sustainability in this world towards a greener future. To my mind, sustainable development, I mean, the definition that we've always been told and that has been actually officially adopted is that if we are able to use resources today in a way that our future generation continue, I mean, in a way where we are meeting our needs and we use it in a way where the resources are enough for the future generations to meet their needs, that's where this development is sustainable. However, this definition, while it was coined by Gro Harlem Brundtland in past, I believe that today it's not enough to just not do bad. It's very important to do good because even with all the resources that we are using, we are somehow not able to fulfill the needs of the current generation itself. And we can't have another planet, so let's start doing, maybe we need to look at more regenerative development. Now, how many of you read any newspaper this morning? India slipped from 107th position on hunger index to 111. Yeah, out of 125 countries. Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all of them are far ahead of us. We can choose to not believe the report, and it is okay because I really don't know the validity of the report. So I'm not saying for the sake of it, but I'm saying it's possible that it may not be right. But when we look around, don't we see this issue? So whether the report is true or not, but there are two things which were written there. One is clearly hunger index, so we know that there is hunger. What is more alarming is that the highest wasting in children is in India, which means our children, given their height and weight and age, are the thinnest in the world. That is at one end of the spectrum, and at the other end, we have diabetic. We are the diabetic capital of the world. I don't know what we are doing, where we are headed wrong, and this social aspect is part of sustainability. So for anyone who believes that environment is the only aspect of sustainability, no, there is more to it. Coming back to the panel today, so I just wanted to give you a background of what is going on in the world today on sustainability for India. We have with us, of course, the official investors, Ruchira, Shukla from IFC. We have Ashish Wadhwani from IvyCap. We have Rockstar founders, Gaurav from BlueStone, Uday from Omega Seiki, right? And we have with us the Chief Sustainability Officer from Zomato, Anjalli. Rare breed, we don't usually get to see Chief Sustainability Officers in startups. So I'm going to start with... They're busy writing reports. Actually, yes, they're busy writing reports. So actually, let me start this panel from you, Anjalli. Let's start with this discussion on what are some of the initiatives as a CSO or even before that you would like to mention about Zomato, which you think are, that could probably, you would like to share with the world on sustainability.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thank you so much for starting us off, reminding everyone that social is one of the is a pillar within ESG. It does tend to get less attention, but it's actually one of the reasons why I joined Zomato. I saw it as a social enterprise, and it didn't help that we were not making profit at the time, so there was that additional angle. But I think what's important is that how Zomato's sustainability strategy evolved, and then we get into the initiatives. It actually started, and this is very common with many companies, that you start off with initiatives, right? You don't really have a strategy, you start with initiatives, things that you feel strongly about. And Zomato's first sustainability initiative was actually the adoption of an NGO working on hunger into Zomato. So within Zomato, we have an NGO, Hunger Heroes, that works specifically on hunger and has delivered 14 crore meals to date under the Feeding India campaign. And thank you all who've donated to the Feeding India campaign through your Zomato orders. But that was the first step to leverage Zomato's vast user base, relationship with the food systems and food industry participants to solve for a social sustainability challenge, right? And then from there on, I think we've been quite conscious of other social sustainability issues, including diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's the second pillar. So SDG 2, Zero Hunger, is the first pillar. Then there's diversity, equity, inclusion, which is another SDG. And there, we've been quite pioneering in terms of, we were the first company in India to offer period leave. We offer equal parental leave. So I think that there's been quite a focus there. But ultimately, what we're best known for and what is most relevant to our industry is the work we do with lakhs of restaurants. About 2 lakh restaurant partners have expanded thanks to our operations. 3.5 lakh delivery partners have found part-time earning opportunities through our operations, and that's a big story there in terms of just making, and these are opportunities that are accessible without any interview, right? So there's very few barriers to accessing these earning opportunities. And it works incredibly well for people looking for supplemental income. And therefore, there's that aspect. But on the environmental side as well, in 2001, we took a pledge that we would be a 100% EV-based delivery company by 2030. And that's the biggest thing we can possibly do, because 93% of our emissions sit in scope 3, and 93% of our emissions sit in deliveries. So climate conscious deliveries is, I would say, the fourth initiative. We've also taken a pledge to offer 100% plastic neutral deliveries. So we understand that everyone hates those plastic containers that food comes in, and we're determined to reduce as well as recycle. So that's another major initiative. But just wanted to say that our strategy has evolved, starting with initiatives and then evolving to meet a lot of expectations, delivery partner expectations, investor expectations, and of course, consumer expectations.
Beautifully articulated, Anjalli. Full points for actually explaining all the initiatives. We will come back to a couple of them, including EV and other initiatives. But meanwhile, and I'll skip Ashish for a minute and come to another rockstar founder here under beautiful startup, BlueStone. I'm a customer of yours. So, yes, Gaurav, I would like to know from you very similarly, what are some of the sustainability initiatives you would like to highlight from BlueStone?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So we are in the business of selling, manufacturing and selling gold and diamond jewelry. We've been around for around 10 years, and we are an omni-channel operator. We started as an online only, but operating in an omni-channel mode right now. So over past 7 to 8 years, we have scaled up our manufacturing significantly. In fact, the first manufacturing unit that we had set up in Bombay was a very small, cramped kind of a unit, but then we realized a lot of things that we need to improve in the whole manufacturing process. And I think that the recent factory that we've recently set up in Jaipur around 2 years back, that's way superior on a lot of sustainability aspects. So almost all the liquid waste is processed before it goes out. So is the solid waste. Even all the air is purified. There are scrubbers that actually scrub all the air. So that Jaipur facility does not emit any pollutants, be it of solid, liquid, or any form. And that's a big improvement, given that almost 80-85% of jewelry manufacturing in India actually happens in very small setups which are not geared to actually take care of a lot of these things. In Jaipur facility, we have solar panels also now, so almost 40 to 50% of the energy is also renewable energy that is being used there. We are in process of setting up our next facility in Surat, and we want to take up our production throughput. So our capacity right now is around 2 to 3,000 crore a year. The next one we are setting up has a capacity of around 10,000 crore a year, manufacturing facility, and that we want to be totally energy neutral. So essentially running on 100% renewable energy and so on. Another initiative that we had taken was, so India imports a lot of gold, and almost all this gold is mined. At the same time, almost 1,000 ton of gold is imported every year. At the same time, the amount of gold that is already sitting in households is actually significantly higher than that. So we are pushing very hard on actually getting that gold back into the system rather than getting new gold from the mines, etc. So to the extent that almost right now, I think 40 to 50% of our gold demand is met through recycled gold rather than the mined gold. And we are actually very actively promoting it. So we are giving extra discounts, extra offers to folks if they actually pay using the gold they already have, rather than paying money. So that also helps us recycle that gold. And this whole recycling process also it also produces fumes, etc. So in last 2 years, since this old gold had also increased, the input of this old gold had increased. We had set up a lot better machines. We had actually imported machines which reduced those fumes by around 30-40%, and then that remaining was also puffed. And on the supply side, we consume diamonds, gemstones, etc. also. So all the supply is there's a certificate called Kimberley certificate. So all the diamonds are certified using Kimberley process. So we make sure that in the entire supply chain also, there is no child labor involved. There is no unethical practices involved.
Wow, actually nice, because two of the things which are very interesting here is that you don't use traditional ways of gold recycling, which are very, very emitting. So it's nice to hear. And one of the key issues that we hear in mined jewelry and gemstones is child labor. And it's really relieving to hear that you are taking care of it. Good job. Coming to you, Uday, we really want to hear more about your work, which is inherently, it should be, world should be looking at it as a sustainable business. But at your work, what are the sustainability initiatives you are looking at? Sure.
My name's Uday Narang. I'm the founder of Omega Seiki Mobility, but actually I'm an commodity, one of the larger commodity traders in the world. I gave off my suits to become a green energy and sustainability person. OSM is today one of India's largest EV companies in terms of commercial vehicles. That's where the majority of the population the pollution comes from. We've been continually working over the last 8-9 years, to make commercial vehicles green. And I think, I'll tell you, I've been in this game long enough. I've worked with enough startups. And the rock stars are not us. The rock stars are the frontline workers. And I think we need to change that a little bit. I got nothing against Ashneil Grover. I think more work on the front line, less work on TikTok. I think is probably better what these rock star needs to do. The rock stars are the frontline men and especially women of this country who are working in our factories, who are working, and we talk about delivery. What I really want, and the time is very limited, but I want, I run a fleet myself, apart from being an OEM, we need to pay those people a bit more. They are really, really not making much money. So I think while the rock stars and all the startup kings and queens are doing this, those are the real rock stars. And the other rock stars, the people, all these young kids sitting in the back who want to build businesses for the long term. But coming back, I think this country needs, 31 of the most polluted cities in the world. My home is Switzerland. I came back about 9 years ago here, and my mom thought I was absolutely mad trying to get into green energy sustainability. Because in this country, what really matters, and I think we've got to be acceptable of this fact, nobody cares about the environment until it saves money. Okay? We talk about it, but I'll tell you, how many of you have actually bought an EV here? Okay, can I have a raise of hands? Okay? This should be all of you. All of you should be. Very good to see you, ma'am. That a young lady like you is driving EVs. I'm really excited to see that. If she can buy an EV, all of you should. If not EV, something else. I think what's important and what I think I want to work is, it's not just about OSM. It's about building the ecosystem, charging, batteries, powertrain, and make in India. Do not import it, from the Chinese or somewhere else. I think, at our factories, we are, like my good friend here said, solar, making sure that, we have sustainability, but we also need to make sure that we have a program where I think more and more industrialists, and I don't just want, as a matter as somebody I want to do business with, so I don't want only startups. We want vehicles to be put at the industrial level. I'm an ex-commodity, big commodity trader. All the mining has to go green. All of this entire ecosystem. Now, people will say, before there was a financing issue, I think that's sort of been sorted. Then we can talk about charging infrastructure. I think, Rome wasn't built in one day, but in India, we want everything today and now. But I'll tell you, the pace at which we are moving here compared to what I see, all the action is in this country. I'll be honest with you, Uncle Joe Biden needs to get off. He's too old to run a country. Or, some of the other guys running the world. I think the possibilities of converting this country into green is substantial. I think the move, I'm really, really impressed to see, what the Prime Minister, I'm a big fan of Honorable Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari ji, but it's not that. Every state is turning green. I think you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that the logistic player drivers are actually getting paid. We don't want to make sure that, the rock stars keep making money and buying Ferraris while the guy at the bottom and the girl at the bottom is making nothing. It's happening. Honestly, it's happening in this country. And you talk about food and hunger. I think I don't want just a person in Mumbai and a person in Gujarat just running this country. वो 125 करोड़ भाई बहनों को ऊपर उठाना है. Thank you.
That was, so Uday did warn me he wanted to hear some tough questions. I did not know he would be giving some tough responses, so good for it. And I'll come to you, Ruchira, in just a second, but we'll go back to Ashish first here. Ashish, I know that you've, IvyCap Ventures, I've worked with you, so I know some of the initiatives that you have taken up as VC towards sustainability and making sure that SDGs are integrated in the system. But I would like to hear from you directly that what are your specific initiatives in this space of sustainability? And you could mention about yourself as a fund as well as talk about the portfolio companies.
No, thank you, Smita, and delighted to be here. And after that very inspiring, arousing speech. The whole sustainability thing has been there for a long time, right? Usually it's been a push. Governments regulate it and sort of force it, or, sometimes give tax incentives and so on and so forth. My interest is more on the market side, right? Because finally, it's what the investor community, what the consumer or what the buyer of our companies, larger corporates, these three is what I define as market for us, right? What they would end up doing. And what is particularly exciting for us is that we see a shift in all three. So there are certainly capital allocators who are now setting benchmarks for funds to really incorporate some of the SDG goals, etc. I think it's a beginning. It's a very small beginning. There's a lot more to go. But that started, right? The second is the market. I think that Gaurav is one of our rockstar founders. Initiatives that he sees, initiatives that his customers are really looking to get and derive out of anything sustainable. And we'll talk more about it later. And the third is corporates who end up buying companies, and we're also driven by the first, which is basically investor community. Now, we took a view several years ago, I think not several, but 3-4 years ago, that finally capital will become more responsible, right? And we'll get more and more capital allocators aligning with the broader goals of the world around, and we decided to adopt SDG, right? No one forced us. No LP came to us and said, if you do this, we will give you so much, right? But we adopted it because we could see where this world is headed. And I'll talk a little bit about, even as individuals and as GPs, what we believe. But we've adopted now SDG for our fund as well as for our portfolio, which means that every time we do an investment, we do due diligence on environment and other SDG goals. And our founders are encouraged to pick one or more of those SDG goals to improve on over a period of time. Again, we are not forcing them. We are not going to penalize them. But we think, and by the way, they have. I mean, we have lots of companies at the portfolio level who have a disproportionate number of women workers, and that's. You can see the difference. You can see the difference in the work cultures. You can see the difference in productivity, the balance, and that's been very insightful for us. I mean, there are founders like Gaurav who really look at furthering green energy, renewable energy goals. We have a food company which also is adopting EV and has certain worker-related sort of practices which are more compliant. So basically, every portfolio founder can pick one or more goals, which during the life of. And you will ask me, of course, you talked about the market and you said, how does it really benefit them, right? Now, what we are seeing if you peel the onion one level deeper, is that today there is an emerging segment, even if it's small, it's emerging, where people are willing to pay for green or pay a premium for recycling and so on and so forth. It's happening in a small way in apparels. We have Purple, which is a beauty company. It's happening in that space. And a variety of other spaces, I mean, which may not be the core business on sustainability, but you can see that it's paying founders to do that, right? And the other part which we are excited about as a fund is the fact that there are a whole lot of new industries linked to renewables or climate tech and so on, which are coming up, which become investable. A last thing here, which is really the core philosophy of IvyCap. Right since the beginning when we started, we built the fund around the alumni ecosystem. So we have pledged fund after fund that part of what we make as GPs will go as a give back to institutes to drive innovation in these institutes, right? So as you can see, I think we are not being forced, but we are kind of trying to drive it in multiple ways.
Absolutely. I actually like this contribution towards innovation. If the VCs start looking at it in this way, institutions are going to go a long way in fostering it. So thank you so much. Coming back to the lady with the biggest money bag, and yeah. So she's the one who's got the most money on this panel, right? So, Ruchira, you are of course funding VCs, you're funding startups, but particularly since you are the lead for South Asia, and looking at the challenges of this region, what are some of your criteria or parameters on which you actually, or you know, the initiatives on which you would like to encourage the VCs and startups to follow, basis which you would like to invest in them? And if you could share any you know, top 1 or 2 examples that you can think of that have been very successful, and the criteria, you again applied the same criteria on them, and you realized it was a good business also.
Thank you, Smita. So,
Yeah, it's working.
ENS and G is part of is very critical to IFC. It's part of our assessment at the very beginning of an investment cycle. But in terms of South Asia particularly, I think the issue of sustainability is an issue on which we are globally united. The place where you began, where you said there is, you know, where is India on the hunger index? Clean air, clean water, clean food is what everybody wants, and everybody globally is deprived of that. It's actually an emotional tug. Yes, it's a commercial tug, and everybody's here to talk about what startups can do and what investors can do. But if you know, where you started with the definition of sustainability, are we building a future for our children? We're not. You know, my 1-year-old son was wearing a mask, and that day I realized that this is not just what I do in my job. This is what I need to do for the next generation, so we leave behind a planet where they can breathe, where they can eat well. Our food is toxic. It's filled with antibiotics and hormones and pesticides. Our water bodies are polluted. So this is a call for action. It's not just for IFC, it's for everyone in this room, right? And so with that premise, so when we go into any investment, we examine it for ENS. And in fact, all our investment committees are now starting with the ENS discussion first. So you open with that and you say, okay, and we begin our diligence with an ENS assessment. And I've been with IFC for now almost 12 years. The scrutiny on this has gone up multifold. In the last 3-4 years, I've had to drop deals that I thought were commercially extremely promising because of ENS reasons. And that was not happening before. We would find a way out. And now we're saying, look, there is no tolerance, zero tolerance on anything that can harm the environment. And that's actually good, because that's the kind of, you know, standards we need to have and the standards we need to propagate. So there's obviously with IFC, there are the performance standards, which everybody knows about. We want everyone to adopt them. We're out there to help those who can't, obviously through our portfolio systems, but also beyond the portfolio. Any of our portfolio VCs are encouraged to adopt them and are required to adopt them for their investees. But again, it doesn't need to be with IFC's portfolio. It's out there in the world for everyone to comply with, and that gives you a framework with which you can function. And we believe that if those are enforced, and we've seen proof points that you build lasting, sustainable businesses, because the stakeholders start responding to the doing good element of your business, right? So you get better customers, you get better relationship with suppliers. It all ultimately translates to better economic value and better returns. So we have an ENS assessment, we have an ENS action plan. We also tag our investments for climate impact, gender impact, and inclusivity. And there is a clear preference for companies that meet all of these requirements.
Excellent. Any particular investment you can think of that did very well while they are meeting all of these?
So I know you asked that, Smita. I was reluctant to name one because, you know, we have a large global portfolio in disruptive tech. We have 19 assets in South Asia. They've all been extremely compliant, and the portfolio itself has done very well. Right? So I wouldn't want to make one example a showcase, but across sectors. The point I'm trying to make is, irrespective of the sector and the space you're in, our portfolio spans e-commerce, B2B platforms, agri-tech, health tech, edu-tech. But with each one of them, we worked on, as Ashish was saying, the goals they need to go after and an action plan to deliver it, as well as measurement and monitoring going forward. And the portfolio as a whole stands at a 3x MOIC. That's only been possible because it's not just commercial returns, it's the holistic building lasting solutions that are good for this planet that we
Absolutely. Coming to that point, and I will probably have another round robin thing with a similar question. We've talked about, okay, there are people who want to look into sustainability. We've talked about VCs who are probably keen and interested in encouraging it. But sustainability doesn't come free. It comes at a cost. When I say it comes at a cost, you may have to totally change your value chain. You may have to find new vendor partners. You may have to invest in the vehicles, like if you want to replace your logistics into more green logistics. You'll have to probably build awareness. There will be a lot of initiatives, a lot of actions, a lot of investments required when you are actually making that call. So when it is between profitability and sustainability, how do you handle that? If that cost, let's go with Anjalli, with you first, and then of course I'll come to you, Gaurav, and we'll first talk to the founders and people, and then come back to the investors. But what do you do there, Anjalli? Do you pass on your cost to the customers? Are they willing to pay you higher for it, or are you bearing all the cost? How do you handle that?
So I think that it helps that at Zomato we see the cost of being sustainable as a cost we have to take into account. I think that's a much required mindset to begin with. And I do think that it's also tough because, you have pressures from all sides. But I think we've been, fairly honest with our investors. In fact, in a shareholder letter, I think we wrote that this is going to come at a cost and deal with it. So I do appreciate that about the founders as well as the general mindset of the company. But I have to say that every cost and challenge is also an opportunity, right? So I think that what is incredibly, helpful for startups and in the room to know is that serving, sort of other startups that have gone public, like Zomato, gives you an opportunity to solve for sustainability challenges in a way that you could then look at solving it for the rest of India. To give you an example, sustainable packaging is a huge challenge right now, right? And we, despite having a very sophisticated dining culture where there are specific vessels for specific dishes, we have a really crap, we don't have really great options for food delivery, right? You get your soup in the same kind of container as you get your biryani, right? Why? We have a very sophisticated dining culture. So the thing is that there is a need for innovation, and there is a need, and by serving startups like ours, I must tell you, we work with over 70 EV leasing companies, and these are really tiny companies, but working with them has helped us reach more than 100 cities in India and offer EV-based deliveries in 100 cities of India. So I think that on the back of, say, challenges, there is a real opportunity for startups. It does take a risk-oriented mindset. That mindset exists in, say, some of the startups that have recently gone public. So it's a great opportunity to try to solve for their problems, I would say first, even though it sounds very selfish, but I would think that you're staring at a huge opportunity. And given our unique Indian mix of extreme sustainability challenges, as well as engineering and tech talent, as well as now compliance requirements. And this is something I go to every startup conference and say, do not dismiss the opportunity to be impactful and meaningful and commercially viable through compliance. Please don't dismiss it. It's huge. If all companies in India were compliant, our air would be cleaner, our water would be cleaner, our labor would be better paid, there would be better working conditions for everyone just from compliance. So don't dismiss the compliance opportunity at all.
Absolutely. No, well said, Anjalli. But again, coming back to you, Gaurav, The crux of the matter is still, like, I may buy this bangle for X price, and knowing fully well, let's say if it's coming from BlueStone and I know that you're being so sustainable, I might pay a premium because I understand sustainability. I'm not quite sure that quite a few customers, in fact, a lot of customers who are very, very value driven and they only want to see what's my return for this money, are they going to pay for it? So as a business which is adopting more and more sustainability in your value chain, you are incurring cost for sure. And if not so far, you are going to incur cost on these items. Are you going to pass them on to your customers? Do you think your customers are open to it, or are you going to bear the cost?
Sure. So our category in fact, it was one of the category where we know everyone was extremely price sensitive, right? We have, over last many decades, we have seen promotions like no making charge, only 2% wastage, 3% wastage, so those kinds of things, which actually make you feel that customers are very, very, very price sensitive, and they'll actually switch sides just for 1% or 2% here and there. And that's how it was. I'm saying 20, 30 years back, that's how it was, but no more. I think there's a good enough cohort and a big enough cohort who are actually ready to pay premium for doing the right things for the brand. And brand is essentially a culmination of all the good things or bad things that you do. So to just give you an example, Tanishq, we all know there's the biggest player, the biggest brand in our category. They are also the most expensive jewelry brand. Right? So generally it does not happen, right? In many of the other categories, you would think, okay, this person is more expensive, so that the expensive one would be niche and the cheaper one would be mass. Actually, in jewelry, it's actually moving in the other direction. If you're too cheap, then it's just people just don't trust you also. So I think a lot of these right things that we do, and people are a lot more aware about these things than, let's say, they were 10 years back, then all that actually rubs off in the brand. It just builds a lot stronger core for the company, and that reflects in the brand persona also. And today's consumers, today's customers are ready to pay significant premium. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2% price differences. I'm talking about, so we are more expensive than almost every other jeweler in the country, even right now. And still people flock to us because they feel that this is the right brand, and they want to, people are very willing to pay premium for the brand, especially in the branded product segment. So I feel it's actually very beneficial to invest in the right sorts of things and to kind of build the right brand which will resonate with people for a long run.
Absolutely, wow. So you are able to use it as a strategy because you are able to attract such customers.
So I wouldn't say that we are very well known for that. I'm saying I just putting one and one together that, okay, and we have not done a great job of kind of communicating it to our customers, but I'm saying the brand in our category commands a premium, and if we can efficiently use this to build a stronger brand, then we will more than make up for that.
Very nice. Thanks, Gaurav. And that brings me to you then. So in your category, do you think you are an expensive brand or more economical one? And are your customers, particularly the enterprise customers, the business customers, are they willing to pay you a premium? Are they willing to pay you the cost that you charge?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. You've bought rock stars, you've bought money bags, you've bought everybody. So it's my lucky day. I think I'm going to go and buy a ticket.
You've got customer, you've got investors, you've got everything.
We got a really good thing going on. So thank you to invite such a simple and a normal man like me here. Coming back to here, I'm learning a lot today here. But what I was going to say is, I got to lift the place up, otherwise it gets very boring here. So the point is that, I think I personally believe, I'm working in India, in Africa, in Latin America. I need to work on those people. I was very impressed to hear the young lady here say, I have a 1 year and I'm worried about their future. All of you understand this. It's not only about education. It's not only about buying diamonds and jewelry. I love, jewelry is something all right, but it's about actually thinking about our future generations. If we don't care about our future generation, ladies and gentlemen, we're all going to be in that, this is going to be a very sad place. But I am working on the front lines, on tier 2, 3, 4 cities where, that Sawa So Crore bhai band that we talk about in India, until we lift them up, right? This Mercedes, BMW life is not going to change anything, right? And I think, young lady over there, when you talk about, Zomato in tier 2, 3, 4 cities, I think we've got to build vehicles. I'm working on vehicles in 3, 2, and even trucks, e-trucks, that can be used by the masses. We can only talk about scale. I know what IFC been doing for a long time. I've seen all the, Zomato. We need to get scale. Until we get scale, there is no green energy and sustainability. And majority of those people don't live in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore. I go to rural Tamil Nadu, rural Karnataka. I go to Gujarat. I'm telling you, this country has an opportunity. Again and again, I say, I'm here, not just because I'm Indian. I think the opportunity is fantastic. But again, it has to be done the right way. It's to be done with safe products. Safe products. Don't build products that, and so we are working on technologies. We are working on products for the scale. We are working on products. Now, only way I can get scale, it has to work. TCO model has to work. So, and forget about, people below here, even above here. People will only do it if it makes economic sense. So I tell you, in 2 and 3 wheelers, the solution is already there. The demand in this country is, there's not a product that I make cannot be sold. The demand is so high, right? But again, for me, I want to build safe. I want to build long-term product. I want to be able to give this service. I want to be able to build the ecosystem. Look, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. All of you, and I know there's a lot of startup people here. Please don't build businesses for round A, B, C, D. I was a hedge fund manager for a long time. I understand this game. Build a business for the long term. Build a business for profitability, right? And don't depend on the government. Build a business for yourself that is self-sustainable. The subsidies are good. So continuously working on that, building the ecosystem, building products, whether it's 3, 2, 4. I think commercial will get a lot more quicker adaption. The passenger will take time, right? Because I think you can see, 53% of 3-wheelers in this country are already electric. I would say, I used to work very closely with, Niti Ayog and the G20 Sherpa. He talked about being 100% in the next 4 years, but I don't think that's going to be possible. But I do think the country is moving towards it. OSM is going to be part of it. But I'll tell you what, it's not just about OSM for me. It's about including the Zomatos. It's about including, IFCs of the world to come and not just put funding at the top level, right? There's a sense in this country where only the big boys and the girls will win. I think in the EV world, listen, we came up and we were given a hard run of money to the top players without even raising a single dollar, all right? And I think what I want to say is there is an opportunity to do this. And I hope all of those young men and women in the back, and those are the rock stars. And Moneybags is here, so you want to catch this lady later on while I'm gone. So I think that's how we want to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Uday. And sorry. You want to say?
I'm at the risk of being kidnapped at
Yes,
the end of this
yes,
panel.
absolutely.
So please save me.
Don't you worry. We all need you, so don't you worry. We'll not let you go.
But I wanted to bring a different angle, right? Because we've all been talking about the cost of sustainability, the cost of having methods and processes and people that care about sustainability. And I want to flip that point, right? And part of the reason, Smita, you invite me to these is always to flip the point. The point is, it's not where the cost is to think about these processes and controls. It's going to be far more expensive if you don't do it. It's far more expensive if you don't care about your people. It's far more expensive if you let those pollutants out into the environment. It's far more expensive in the long run if you don't have gender diversity in your teams. So I think building right, having those sustainable elements in the design is actually going to be far more cost effective, and your ROI on that, what you see as an initial cost, is going to be so compelling that there is going to be no option. It's going to be an existential requirement, right? So it's not about, I'll save some money and I'll get by. It's about whether you will just survive or even die, or whether you will thrive as a business, as a multi-generation business, not as a Series A to Series D business, to your point.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Ruchira. And in fact, you stole my line on design, because that was the punchline I was going to close it with, that the solution is designed for sustainability, but very valid, what a good point. And that's actually the whole logic of sustainability here, that if you have a longer vision, if you're not just thinking about from Series A to Series D, if you're not just thinking about this financial year's balance sheet, then of course you need to think, you will be able to probably overlook some of the costs and maybe you'll be willing to make investments. But as a very, very commercial venture capital, IvyCap and Ashish, you personally, I would like to understand from your experience and in fact, give us some insight into the VC world, that when a VC is looking at a business and where the discussion is about profitability versus sustainability, and I know already your ethos, I know your principles, we agree that you agree on sustainability, but if it actually boils down to that it's this or that, where would you stand?
No, look, I'm paid to do a job by LPs like IFC. So I will basically, tackle it, take a very, very hard approach here. We can talk about high morals, ethics, we can talk about next generation, but on a day-to-day basis, people do what they are incentivized to do, right? Now, some of the, and by the way, in your question, one of the biggest problems in, you have simplified the question, cost versus profitability or sustainability, right? I don't think that most people even understand what the true costs are, right? I don't think that the systems and our ecosystem is set up to incentivize or disincentivize costs or these actions, right? On the other hand, I don't even think people know and understand how to evaluate sustainability. So while you put it as a simple equation, I think we are all over the place in terms of understanding costs and understanding sustainability. I think, I'm sorry, but that's the real, real truth. But coming to your point, I think finally the market, and there are two parts to this. I think finally at the product market level and entrepreneur level, who is trying to make it work. And by the way, Series A, Series B, Series C is important to him. He will not give it up, right? He has to succeed. Therefore, the product market fit, I think he will make, and the important thing here is that there's a growing segment of customers who are willing to pay a premium for choices in the product or service that are more sustainable. That is the great hope for me. There are a growing bunch of entrepreneurs who are building businesses which are fundable and yet sustainable, right? We don't have to go for the biggest, largest, which are not sustainable. There are a growing set of that. So, and there's one more point I want to, you put it as a cost versus sustainability thing. For us, there is also the value equation. Today, if Gaurav does a great job of implementing SDG goals, I'm sure Ruchira will pay a premium when I go back to her and say, here is one of our portfolio companies. Or she may not even look at this company because they're not sustainable. So access to capital and value. The reason why we adopted SDG is because we believe that in the future, there may not be a corporate M&A market unless our portfolio companies are SDG compliant or have shown or demonstrated sustainability. Or the market may be willing to pay a premium for that. So there's also the value versus practices that don't seem to be cost effective on one side. But I think we need to do a lot of work on understanding what is true cost, what is really sustainability. And if you have a minute, sure, I can give you two examples of why the sustainability idea is somewhat uncertain. I have a dear friend who is a professor in INSEAD, and he does work only in this area. It's strategy and sustainability. Now, he gave an example of how they introduced healthcare in villages in Africa and took away the local, practices. And what happened was, 10 years later, the cost became very high, and the local doctors had all gone away, and healthcare started dipping after 10 years. That's what I mean when I say that we don't know how to measure sustainability. Absolutely. There's a team which had come, another example, somebody is doing his PhD in this space, and he got his professors to come and look at some of the lifestyle choices that people are making in India. Our Prime Minister is talking about lifestyle and so on. But he got his professors to look at it, and they were surprised to see the level of environmental thinking that some of our local people have, which is sustainability. So I think there's a lot more education required, both in terms of sustainability versus cost.
No, absolutely, absolutely, Ashish. Great. So, well said. And before I come to for my last question to the entire panel about, what are your last words on some advices for the VC community, for the startup community, and the founders on how to adopt sustainability, I want to come to you, Ruchira, because I do feel, and Uday, you're going to pay me if she, gives you fund. So yes, I do feel that after hearing everybody, I have this feeling that you happen to be, when I say you, your community happens to be a core driver of sustainability into businesses. So if businesses have to feel incentivized to actually do this, it probably could be driven from your end. It doesn't necessarily mean, and it could actually mean premium also. But so that's what I wanted to understand, that while we do see some VCs like IvyCap, we don't see many such VCs right now who are, who have already adopted this. They're still on their way, and I think IFCs and the likes of you could actually promote that more. But how do you really encourage more VCs, more startups to adopt sustainability? Is there any kind of incentivization that happens, particularly for the VCs? Because once you push the VCs, of course, the VCs will be pushing the startups. But is there any kind of premium pricing or any such things that you offer for this?
It's binary. It's binary for every VC and every startup that a DFI supports. And I say DFI because not just IFC, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not ENS compliant, sorry, we can't move forward. And there's no greater incentive than that, right? So it's not, there's a premium or there is a penalty or there is a if and but. It's black or white. You need to be supportive of this agenda in order to be considered for capital.
But just to add to, sorry to cut you short, but just to add to that was, yes, so point taken that you will only invest if there is an ENS lens and if you're performing there. But let's say there is a cost involved there. Let's say there are investments required to do that and to improve their
That's
value
where we help.
But,
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have an entire and huge ENS department that comes in, that will assess your practices, that tell you where you're scoring high or low, they create an ENS action plan that is shared with the company, that's implemented. It could take 6 months to implement, it could take 9 months to implement, and we handhold through the implementation process. So it's not just you need to do it, that's not how it is. Yes, you need to do it to be considered. If you're somewhere in that spectrum where you need the support, we are there to support you. And we are there not just on day one, but throughout your journey to support you. But it's also becoming an imperative where it's not just about an LP-VC relationship or a VC startup relationship. The customers are going to be asking for it, right? We're all becoming increasingly aware. And as we're all becoming increasingly aware, as we're all thinking about the future we'll leave behind for our kids, every grandmother in every household will start thinking about this. So I think very quickly, and that's the positive of where we are, in the next 6 to 18 months, sustainability will not necessarily be a topic that needs to be discussed on a panel. It will become a household agenda. Yeah. And that's the future we all want.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ruchira. And coming back to each one of you, if you could very quickly...
May I request Ruchira, in our ecosystem, there's a lot of misconception of what sustainability, what practices should be followed, early stage, mid stage, late stage. It will be of great benefit if institutions like yourself really educate founders and VCs. Because what we are finding in one case, and I think Smita knows about it, you take a template from, a multi-billion-dollar company and try to push it down the throat of a Series A founder. And, neither objective is going to be met. So really request you to, help the ecosystem educate it.
Good point, yes.
In fact, maybe then I start from here itself. How could we really, bring more awareness in this ecosystem, in the VCs and the founders about this? How do we do that?
The efforts that we're all doing here, this conversation we've just had, the conversations that you've been championing, Smita, in your capacity in your organization, all of that is moving in that direction. But I think we're still scratching the surface. There's a lot more to be done. And Ashish, to your point, yes, absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all. There needs to be tailoring to the industry, to the stage and size of the organization, to their level of preparedness. So there needs to be, and that's why it will take a lot of effort to make it happen. But very quickly we can have some quick learning processes, and that way allow for scale-ups. So you have one model for one sector, for one stage of business, and then adapt it very quickly. So happy to continue doing that as IFC. But to your point, this is a journey that's begun, and a lot more needs to be done. And every conversation is creating that awareness, because so far we were talking about measurement, management, monitoring. What you've been hitting on is now motivation. Motivation given the initial M before the other 3 M's come, right? Which is motivation to spend the money, motivation because there's awareness. That is a process, and I think it's now sort of, as they say, they've left the shed, and now it's, the horse has left the barn. And so in the next 18 to 24 months, we should see rapid scale up of that awareness and motivation.
Awesome. So very quickly, Uday, one quick sentence on how we can bring more awareness in the ecosystem.
I think just make India greener. And the only way we can do this is if we all not just come here, but actually when we walk out of here, and not just there, but the people below. That's where I think scale will come. And I think this is the need of the hour. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Uday. Gaurav, very quickly, what could we do?
So I know a lot of early stage founders. I work with a lot of them, and I was one myself also. So I think a lot of education needs to be given there. In our age group, our school curriculum or the college curriculum never covered these topics, right? So a lot of us are just not even aware of the fundamentals and so on. So I think, and we spoke a lot about how to push people to kind of adopt to this. I think awareness itself might encourage a lot of them to adopt it. Many of them might not even need push, but I think education and such networking events would definitely help. And I think a lot more networking and a lot more information dispensing, if that's done to the startup founders, I think it'll just encourage them to undertake this journey a lot sooner in their life cycle.
Sure. Ashish.
I'm going to add one more M here after motivation. It is movement, right? Which is, in the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a community-based, sort of, whether it is e-commerce or industry and public issues. So, let's adopt and take our own personal motivation to do it. Find things to do in our sphere of influence, which can incrementally change things. And I can tell you collectively, if we make it as a movement, there's a lot bigger markets will be created, a lot more understanding, a lot more startup founders. I think that could be one of them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ashish. Anjalli, you get the last word.
Just to say that the design stage of your startup product or service is probably the most important stage in which to weave some of these ideas in. And I would highly recommend looking outside India at other models, because there are other geographies where sustainability has been in vogue for a much longer period of time. Places like the UK in particular, consumers have been making sustainable choices for far longer. I had the benefit of working with Unilever, and it was really consumer pressure that forced a lot of change even in the Indian market. For products and services in India, the change came from the fact that international consumers had moved. So I do think keep your eyes peeled for what is going on outside India, and weave your some things are really hard to change after the design stage. We can't make our delivery opportunities more female-friendly now. They are inherently quite oriented towards men. So some things are much better at the design stage.
Thank you so much, Anjalli. So at the end of it, I want to just conclude saying sustainability seems like a good business strategy, good business opportunity. Please do adopt it. And of course, like Ashish said towards his end, that it could actually unlock a lot of potential in businesses. We could actually be coming up with new business models with our sustainability approach. So good luck to all of you, and thank you for your patiently hearing for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Smita. Smita, I'll just ask you to just give us another second. This is a little token of appreciation for all our guests and all our speakers. Thank you so much, Ruchira. Thank you, Uday. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Ashish. And thanks, Anjali.